welcome to this episode of the Stitch Sessions. Hope you're all doing well and staying warm and cozy in these winter days. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I love to share my love of crochet crafting. And in this week's tutorial, we are working on the lovely lavender chevron scarf. Now, I actually created this project last year. For those of you that remember my knit stitch mittens that I created last February, in one of those photos, I'm actually wearing this scarf. And I fell so in love with this. I filmed the tutorial and then I put it kind of in my vault of tutorials, and I just came across it the other day and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to get this out because first of all, I love the way this design turned out, and it's just such a cozy, beautiful design, if I do say so myself. I just love how it came out, and I'm really excited to share it. It's so easy to create, but it looks so different, I feel. And as you can see here, it's done kind of on a gradient, and it's a yarn that sadly is discontinued, but it's a medium 4-weight yarn. You can use any medium 4-weight, but I do have to say it's somewhere between a 3 and a 4. It's not quite a lightweight yarn, and sadly I don't even remember what the label actually said because it's been discontinued and I no longer have the label, but I'll leave a screenshot for it because I did use the same yarn in another project the previous year, the autumn wrap. And it was such a pleasure to work with the yarn. The only thing is, and I talk about this in the tutorial, is it comes in hanks. And I'm not a fan of yarn that comes in hanks because you've got to unwind them and then rewind them and they can get all tangled and all that fun stuff. In any case, so that's the story with the yarn. I would definitely not recommend a bulky yarn, although there's no law that says you can't do it with a bulky yarn. But when you look at the design, it really lends itself more to a kind of a medium to a lightweight yarn, just to create these beautiful effect, to let the fabric sit loosely and relaxed. And I was so excited to find these colorways here. So it's like a lavender, a purple, going into a gradiated pink. So it seems that when I was working on this tutorial, I actually remembered that at the time I was traveling. So I filmed the intro. I completely forgot to film the materials that I used. I did start using a 5mm hook, but then I do explain why I ended up changing to a 5.5. So in the beginning, when I filmed the tutorial, I was using a 5mm hook to do my chain, but then I accidentally picked up a 5.5mm hook. So that is actually the hook size I used for this project. So long story short, use any yarn you like. I used 4 different colors. You can use 2 different colors, 3, whatever is your choice. The hook was a 5.5mm hook. And of course, always make sure that you have a handy pair of scissors and a darning needle to sew in any ends at the end. And so it's so neat because all you have to know is your half double crochet stitches, and I go through the concept of decreasing. So understanding how to decrease is what's going to help to create the chevron effect. And some of you who saw my loops and arrows blanket tutorial may feel like, oh, that kind of is a similar concept. Yes, it is a similar idea, but the way we go about creating this arrow or chevron type effect is different. So in the loops and arrows throw, we worked in the round. In this one, we are just working in rows back and forth. I promise you, it's a lot easier than you might think it looks for those of you that are super beginners, and those of you that are experienced, I'm sure you're gonna take to this very, very quickly. And at the end of each point, I just added a little tassel. Now, I don't go through that in this tutorial, but I will leave a link for how to create a tassel in the description box down below for those of you that want to add it in. So without further ado, let's get all of our materials organized and let's get you started on your own lovely lavender super scarf. To begin our project, we're going to start with a slip knot. Once you've secured the slip knot to your hook, we are going to do a total of 250 chains. So you yarn over and pull through. Now you may want to go up a full hook size for this first chain, or even a half a hook size, because we don't want our work to be too tight. And a lot of times the most common thing that happens in that first chain row is that we stitch too tightly. Now I'm pretty comfortable with my chains and understanding to keep it loose in the beginning, but sometimes I will change hooks just to be on the safe side. But in the meantime, go ahead and chain 250. If you choose to do a longer scarf, you can do 275 chains. I just measured that around my neck, and I like it to sit, I like a super scarf to sit kind of mid-thigh to almost at the knees. It's just because it can also be used as a shawl later on. So I'm starting with 250. You can do more, you can do less. There is no multiple in this pattern, so just go ahead and do your number of chains. Once you've done your 250 chains, you'll have something like this, and they'll be a little bit loose, some of them. Okay, those are the back bumps, that's the front. Just want to make sure that they're just nice and even and relaxed. And chances are you may have 249, you may have 251, you may have 255. It's not a big deal. Again, this really is customizable to the length that you would like. So this is a super scarf, so we want it extra long. So once you've got the chain length that you like, we're now going to chain an additional 2, 1 and 2, and now into the third chain from the hook. Remember, you never count the one on your hook. Into the third chain, we're going to do a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Okay, so you have something like that. And that is what we're going to do into each and every single stitch all the way to the end. So you may have 249, you may have 250. It does not matter. Right now this is row 1, and we're just going to do 1 stitch into every single chain. The main thing that you want to concern yourself with is not twisting your chain. You want to go into each stitch across the front where you can see the V's. If you do that, you're now going to go into the back. It's going to twist your work. So that's the only thing you really want to be careful with, okay? So that's all we want to do. 1 half double crochet into each stitch. Okay, we are just about here. I thought we'd never get here. So we've got this nice long row, our first row of half double crochets. So you can see it should look very nice and uniform, just like that. That's the front of our work, and that is the back there. So every time you come close to the end of a row, and this is going to be the same for the whole project, is you want to make sure that you're aware of your last 2 stitches coming up. Now remember, this is our slip knot, so it doesn't count. Okay, so at the end of every row, we are going to decrease the number of stitches. Now, how many rows you do this does not really matter. Because we've got, in my case, 250 stitches, I am basically going to go until I use up my whole skein. So basically, 2 skeins worth are going to be 1 trapezoid, or 1 trapezoid shape. So I'm going to keep decreasing on each side to create that nice angled look. Okay, so that's the beauty of this project. You don't really have to count rows per se. So to decrease, we want to make sure the last 2 stitches are available. So we work the half double as usual. You yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch. You'll pull through. Do not resolve. You're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, which is this last V right here before the slip knot. And you'll yarn over and pull through. You will have 5 loops sitting on your hook. Then you'll yarn over and we'll pull through all 5 of them, which is going to resolve that stitch. So what that does is that brings these 2 stitches and only creates 1 stitch. So we've decreased already the number of stitches there. And already you can see that it's slanting this side, which is exactly what we want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. So I want you to notice that I only chained 1. So just like we decrease at the end of every row, we have to decrease at the beginning of every row. Normally what we would do is chain 2 to begin a row of half double crochets, but we don't want to create the full height. So that's why we're only chaining 1. We're going to yarn over, and right away into that first stitch, we will insert our hook. But here's what's going to also be different. Normally we'd insert right into that full stitch to work a regular half double crochet, but we're going to add a little different technique here. We are going to insert our hook into the bottom front loop. So I'm going to insert right there. You see that? So we've got our loops at the top, which is our stitches. So we have the front loop and then we have the back loop. So the loop closest to us is the front. The loop furthest away is the back. If you face your work forward, this is the front side. Well, technically this is the back side of these stitches. You've got the top 2 loops, which we just discussed, and then you've got this bottom front loop. We are going to be inserting always into the bottom front loop. This is going to give us that neat little knit looking stitch. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over as I usually do, and right away in the bottom front loop, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over and pull through. So I have 3 loops. I'm not going to resolve it yet. I'm going to yarn over again and into the next front bottom loop, which is right here. I will insert again, yarn over and pull through. So again, I'm going to have 5 loops on my hook. I'll then yarn over one more time and then resolve that half double crochet stitch by pulling through all of them. Okay, so now you can really see it's created this neat point here on the side. And now until the end, I'm just going to do a half double crochet, 1 into each stitch, so there's no decreasing anymore. We're only decreasing at the end and at the beginning. So you've seen how we do both. And now you're just going to continue on 1 half double crochet into each bottom front loop all the way to the end. So make sure that you really pay attention. This one's already been worked into. So this is the top loops, this is the bottom, and I just come up through the bottom and insert, pull through, and I'll resolve like a regular half double crochet. Again, yarn over into the next bottom front loop, pull through, and it can be a little tricky, so just really take your time. Definitely this is not a project that you can rush through. Bottom front loop, pull through, and pull through. So just want to do a few there so you can see the effect. So we're using the bottom front loops of all the stitches. So when I turn my work over, see that? We've pushed out so this top loop here in your stitch, it's been pushed forward. So now what it does is it creates this really neat knit-like effect. And that is the texture we are going to give to our scarf all the way throughout the project. So that is what we're going to be doing, is working into all of those bottom front loops. Okay? So you now know how to decrease at the end, and you know how to decrease at the beginning. Every time you come to the end, remember, be aware to save your last 2 stitches to decrease. Then you'll chain 1, turn your work, and you'll decrease at the very beginning. The rest is just simple half double crochet stitches. So go ahead and do that all the way to the end, and then the project just continues on for rows and rows and rows and rows until you reach the width of your scarf that you like. So I will see you in a little bit. Alrighty, so my lovely lavender scarf is turning out like this. I just have to fold it in, have it folded like that just so you can see. It is quite long, and the decreases are working perfectly. Now what I've done is I've actually used one skein and half of the next one. The reason why I'm stopping here is because I'm now going to start working on the second half, which will create the point. So it'll look like this if I fold the scarf over. So that's the effect that we want to go for. So that's why I'm going to stop there. I'm now going to introduce my other colors to work this second half here. And then if I need to, I'll just use the little leftovers to create a border. But I'm super happy with my super scarf. And it's exactly the effect I was hoping for, and you can see a little bit of the lavender coming through. So now we're going to get started working on the second half, which means we're now going to come back to this end and work from here on out. Okay, so we are going to now, so I've snipped off my yarn on this end. So we're going to go back to what was originally the bottom of our work. This is where we started. And now we're going to work on the bottom half. So we want to create another side that points exactly like this to create that nice little arrow effect. So just turn our work here. And now we're going to work into our original foundation chain row. Might be a little funny to see, but if you just pull that little end apart, you can see where the original chain stitches are. So I'm introducing my new color, and this one is actually called Violet. Okay, so this is the loops and thread, in case you are wondering which series I'm using again. So I'm going to start off with a slip knot. And I do want to just make a little comment here. I know that I started the tutorial with a 5mm hook. Shortly after I began the tutorial, I took this project with me on a trip, and I realized that I brought the wrong size hook. It wasn't this hook. It was another hook that I thought was a 5. And it ended up being a 5.5. So basically my foundation chain row was done with the 5mm, and then I've done most of this project now with the 5.5, which actually ended up coming out quite nicely. It just gives it a little bit of a stretch, a give. It's just funny because usually we say start with a larger hook for your first foundation row and then move down. I've kind of done the opposite, but it's neither here nor there. I mean, the work is still coming out pretty decently. So just in case you're noticing I have a different hook, I have actually moved to doing it with a 5.5mm hook and not a 5. So again, you can use any size hook that you like depending on the drape that you're looking for. So I've got a slip knot on my hook, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert into that first chain stitch there, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. So I'm just going to pull through and pull through the other one. There we go. So once you've slip stitched to join into that first chain, what we want to do is we want to chain 1, and then into the very next stitch, we want to do a half double crochet. So we're not going to worry about the stitch that we slip stitched into. We're just going to half double crochet right away into the next one. Now the reason why I'm doing that is because I want it to create an increasing effect, which will keep the point of our scarf fairly pointed. And you'll see that effect as we do more stitches. So that's all we're going to do for this row, is we're going to go into, because remember this is our foundation chain, so we don't have any loops we're working with other than the chains themselves. So we're simply going to go into each stitch and work a half double crochet all the way across. And then you're just going to continue as usual. You're going to get to your last 2 stitches, and you want to do a decrease 2 together at the very end. So the same principles apply that you've been doing so far. It's just that right now we're working into the foundation chain row. So we're going to just simply work directly into the stitches. So I'm just doing a few more here and right there so that you can see, hopefully you can see that. So now we're working into the bottom. So originally when we started our work, we started working from here and we worked our way up. So now you can see we've turned it upside down, so to speak, and now we're working along the bottom edge of that original foundation chain row, okay? So pretty straightforward. You can see my point is right there. I'm just pulling up those two ends. And pretty straightforward, so just continue on. 1/2 double crochet into each stitch directly and until you get to the end. And once you get to the last 2 stitches, you're going to do your usual of 2 half double crochets together, and then you're off to the races. As usual, you'll chain 1, turn your work, and then do your decrease again and continue on as you usually have been doing. So now what's going to happen is this effect that we've created here will now be created here. Just zoom that out. So that now you're going to get that true arrow effect. And that's it, that's all. It's pretty easy, but it's going to create such a cool look for our super scarf. So go ahead and do that. And once you are done, then we'll talk about the finishing touches. Oh, and just one other thing. However wide you make 1/2, make sure that you make it equal on the other side. So for example, for this darker color here, I did use a full skein of the yarn. So that was 100 grams. The next one, I would say I used approximately half of that skein because I could see that this is approximately a good width of what I want. Because remember, we're going to double this, right? So a great way to gauge for the second half is just make sure that your first color on this side has the same number of ridged rows. And then once you get your second skein, just make sure that that skein will equal the same number of ridged rows on the other side. And that should equal everything out. And one more thing I forgot to mention is remember that we are working into the front bottom loops, and that's what creates these ridges, right? So because this is technically the first row of the foundation chain row, I know I've mentioned this already, but we're just working directly into the stitches. But once you get to the end and chain 1 and turn your work, then we go back into working into the front bottom loops. So just a note to remember that, but I'm sure you would have figured out once you would have noticed that your work didn't look the same. But that's it for now. I'll meet you at the end. So here's what I have so far, guys. I'm done my length. So you can see I've got the 2 points on either side. And just got this folded up here. Now what I want to do, I actually am going to, now that I have the width that I'm happy with, and I love how the colors kind of graduate over, I am going to actually extend each pointed side. And although I was really happy with the initial chains of 250, as is typical of crochet work, the length did shrink up a bit as I worked the stitches in and grew the project. So this does wrap around my neck, for example, twice, but it's snug. I'd like to leave a nice long end at the end. So I am now going to add in, I'm going to extend the edges here. Now you can leave it completely plain as is, and I am actually quite happy with the effect. The only thing I want to do is add some length. And all this was half double crochets, guys. Worked into the back loops, and we've got this gorgeous braided texture. I'm super excited. So let's add a little bit extra to our points and give it just an extra little finishing row. So I've just finished off my last row here, and actually instead of turning my work, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to continue to go around this little corner here and up the side of my point. Now, to keep the integrity of the point at the edge here, what I'm going to do is I am going to decrease on the sides here. Now for this first round, I'm not going to. I'm just going to chain 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to half double crochet into the side of this stitch. So I'm just going to pick up, because this is a decrease from the previous stitch here, I'm just going to pick up a couple of these loops just to get me around the corner here. And I'm just going to be gentle with it. I don't want to undo my work. Okay, so now it's going to help me go around the side here. You see that? Now what I want to do is I'm actually going to decrease the next 2. And this is going to help me pull this in a bit to maintain the integrity of the pointed look. So because we are working into the sides of stitches, you're just going to have to go by feel and aesthetically what you find is pleasing to your eye. So I know that each braid represents 2 rows that I've worked. So relatively, I'm going to try and do at least 1 stitch into the side of each row. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this space here, which is 1 row. And then I'm going to pick up one of these little braided ends. That's another row. And again, I'm just going to at least get 2 loops here. Won't be an exact science. And now I'm going to, so these are 2 stitches together right now. Okay, so that is just, it helps it round out the side here and then pushes it a little bit over. You probably can't tell quite yet, but it will come together in a moment. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on with 1 half double crochet, and I just want to try and keep them even. I'm trying to avoid any gaps like this. So, and I usually try and pick up more than one loop here. So just take your time. Whoops, I need to go all the way through. Half double crochet. There we go. And I'm going to go again. I'm going to find a nice space here or a spot. I like this one here. And then there's one calling my name right there. So, you know, if you just stretch your work a little bit, usually spots will kind of show up. And as long as it looks relatively even, that the stitches, I should say, are sitting or seem to be sitting relatively even to you, then you are good to go. So there you go. Actually, I kind of like how that's coming out because it's really defining that edge up along the way here. And then we'll continue on to the other edge. So keep doing that. Just 1 half double crochet into wherever you feel is fit. I'm so used to saying into each stitch. But really, this one is really going to be up to you and where you think that would be the best placement for your next stitch. So do that all the way to the other end of your point. Okay, so you're going to go all the way up here. I'm going to meet you here because we will have to increase here to maintain our pointed shape. So I'll see you shortly. I so love how that came out, is coming out. It just kind of gives it a nice finishing round, and it's going to extend my end. So I'm really happy with it. So basically my end color is left over. So I'm going up this point here. And in fact, this other end color, I have some left over because I had decided that this is the width I wanted. So this is the color I will use at the other end. So I think it'll look really cool with each end color capping off each pointed end. So speaking of points, here I am here. I've come up to where my point was, and this is actually where we began our work. So this will be a perfect opportunity to actually just work over this short tail here. So what I want to do is I will go right up until the point. So my point, I'm going to make it right there. Okay, so I'm going to do another half double crochet, probably right about there. I always want to try and get a few loops just to make it a little sturdier. Okay, and now I'm pretty much getting up to my corner, so I'm going to half double crochet. So actually I should, yeah, so this is where these two meet, so I'm actually going to insert right there. So it's just below where the slip knots went. So I'm going to do one half double crochet. In fact, I'm going to do 2 half double crochets. Okay, just zoom in a bit here. So there's 2, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2. And this will create a point or a corner. And you may remember this technique from doing granny squares. So now I'm just going to lie that down there, and I'm going to go back into this same space. And I'm going to do 2 more half double crochets. So I'm just getting those tails out of the way. I'm going to go back into that same space. So there is 1. And now I'm going to go again, and there is the second one. It feels a little messy because I've got these tails in my way, but they will disappear shortly. Okay, so you can see now it's going to have a nicely finished point. So right away now we're working down the other side. So I'm just going to continue on, and I don't really want to go into this really loose loop here. I'm going to go right into this area here. So that will help to add a little bit of fortification to that loop. And now is when I am going to try to make sure that I work over these little tails and get them out of the way. Oops. Let's find a good spot there. There we go. So I just hold those tails down, slowly work over them. And now I just continue on as I was before, just finding spots that I like, that I think will continue to look even all the way down the other side. Okay. So now you should be able to see, and the color is changing a bit. So it may just look a little funny because of that. But so see, now you can really see the point, and the point has a bit of a finished edge now. So there you have it. And I'm going to do several rows, and that's going back and forth. And so that's what's going to help me extend the length of my scarf. So just go ahead and finish the other side. I'm going to meet you here and just kind of guide you through how to turn around and work back up. And I'm going to do several more rows after that, but I'll meet you at the end there. So I have come down the other point now, and I've done the last stitch. So I'm just going to weave this in after. This is the last end of the other side. So my last stitch actually sits nice and evenly here. So I am going to what am I going to do? I think I am still going to add one more little stitch here. Because the reason why is because I am going to be turning a corner and I want it to have, there we go. So just add a little bit of beef to it, so to speak. So I'm going to turn my work. Sorry, I'm chaining one and turning my work. Once I've chained one, I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go into the bottom front loop of the very first stitch here. So it's good as we have stitches to work into now. Pull through, yarn over, and go into the very next one. Again, bottom front loop. So we've got 5 loops on the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all of them, just like we've been doing before. Okay. And now the beautiful thing is we have stitches to work into, so we continue on as usual. 1/2 double crochet into each stitch. Just doing a few so you'll be able to see the effect. And we do this all the way till we get to our point again. So I'm going to take that out. So you can see our decrease has now caused it to move in a wee bit. So now you're basically, it's easier. You've got stitches to work into, so you know what to do. We continue on as we've been doing before. When we're working lengthwise, you work into each bottom front loop. Remember, these are the top loops. Here's the bottom front loop. Once you get to your corner, you're going to find, remember that chain 2 space? You're going to do 2 1/2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 1/2 double crochets into that space. That will help you keep rounding out your corner. All right, gang, I'm going to set you loose to extend your scarf if you so wish to. Okay, I've gone ahead and done a whole bunch of rows here so you can see the effect of adding this ending trim at the end. I quite like it actually. It changes up the texture a little bit and it gives a bit of a grounding to the end of your work. So I had left off just at a corner here the last time we started off, and I got a little bit excited and did a whole bunch of rows, but now I'm just going to remind you again what we're going to do here. I'm just going to work into the front bottom loop again of this last stitch here. And then here is my chain space. I'm just going to do 2 1/2 double crochets. And then chain. And 2 1/2 double crochets. So that's what we've been doing in our spaces here. And so that maintains the pointed shape. And then I continue on as usual, working into the bottom front loops of the stitches. So that's basically it. I just wanted to go over that corner part again. And you're going to continue on. Again, if you are doing this portion of the scarf, you'll continue on until you get the width that you like of your particular point, we'll say. So I feel like I'm getting close to mine, and then I'm going to go to the other end and do the same thing with the other outside color. So this lavender color here is what I had left over. So that's what I'm going to use for the other end. I'm going to make sure to leave just enough of each color that I can create my tassel at the end. So all in all, this was 4 skeins that we've used, and I'll probably still have a wee bit left over. So of course, depends on the length of the scarf that you want to make, but I'm getting pretty happy with the length now that I've added on a few of these rows. So far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 10 rows in total, because remember the ridges show every second row on the front. So yours may be 12, it may be 14, it might only be 2 or none at all. So it all depends on the look you're going for, but I'm really liking how that came out. All right, gang, so go ahead, finish the other side if you are doing this along with me, and then you'll pretty much be done. Okay, and here is the final result. So I did a total of 15 rows on each end with the points here. So you can see how the pink was on this edge, so it was carried through around this point. And then on this side, the light lavender color was ended here, and then I used that to carry through that side. I don't know what it is about this project, but I adore it. I have gotten so many compliments on this scarf just because of, first of all, it goes on a point. You don't see that very often, and how the point comes in and the other colors join in. So I can't say enough about it. With a simple one stitch, one row repeat. And of course, it all comes together as well because of the color choices that I made. So in this case, I stayed in the gradient of the purples and lavenders and the pinks. You can choose anything. I mean, I think it would also look lovely if you started something like an emerald green and then working the gradient down, or you don't have to work in a gradient. You can actually do completely contrasting colors. Like, I think this one will be super cool to see what you guys come up with color-wise. I really hope many of you will jump into this project and send me a photo. And I think I'm gonna see some super creative ideas on how to work the colorways in there. So if you do that, please tag me on Instagram at the Stitch Sessions. If you're not on Instagram, you can also post it on my Facebook page, which is the Stitch Sessions. Please do. I'd love to see it. And I'd love to share all of our friends' work that follow along here on the Stitch Sessions. So if you like this tutorial and you'd like to see more scarf tutorials or more different designs, please give me a thumbs up. That will help me know I'm on the right track to creating tutorials and projects that you want to see. And if you're new here and you enjoyed this tutorial, I invite you to press that subscribe button. Come hang out with me. Every Wednesday, I upload a brand new tutorial. If you do have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comment box down below. Or suggestions, by the way. I've had a few of you actually email me directly, and I so appreciate it. Those tutorials and project suggestions are coming on the way, so don't fret if you don't see them right away. It takes me a little bit of time, but they are coming on their way. And as always, if you do want to reach me directly, you can always find me at info@crochetcrafty.com. And remember to come and check out the website, Crochet Crafty, and sign up for the free monthly newsletter, because every month I gift you a free written pattern. So if you're also looking for some written patterns on some of our previous tutorials, you can find that in my Etsy shop at Crochet Crafty Canada. And other than that, I so enjoy hanging out with you guys, and thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me every week and continuing to support my my crochet journey, my fun, my excitement over the craft. It definitely has brought me a lot of peace and a sense of calm in lots of times when Lord knows I've needed it. I hope it does the same for you. So on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Happy crocheting as always. Remember to take good care of yourselves and each other. And I look forward to seeing you guys in next week's session. Take care.